Buyers and sellers. It's a dynamic that any traditional sports fan understands. As the season winds down and the postseason approaches, teams are placed into the position of having to make hard decisions about their current squad. On the one hand, the sellers, the less fortunate, the peasants. Either through bad luck, incompetence, or some combination of the two, their season has gone into the toilet and that fucker's gotten backed up. The playoffs are a distant hope, so they have but one choice. Sell off whatever expensive assets they may have and look to acquire as many futures as possible, be they draft picks or prospects. On the other hand, the buyers, the fat cats, the lords. With the playoffs approaching, they look not to sell off their expensive pieces, but instead add to their already rich roster. They look at the weak teams stocked with players. Perhaps this will be the piece that pushes them over the edge and propels them to glory, and being the latest embarrassment to their region internationally. The LCS is not like traditional sports leagues. It has no trade deadlines where teams must decide one way or the other. Hell, it barely even has actual trades. Yet two teams found themselves in similar quandaries as the 2021 summer split wound to a close. Golden Guardians and FlyQuest, two teams that are mired at the bottom of the table. With less wins between them than evil geniuses, and one realistic playoff spot up for grabs between the two of them and CLG, their choice was fairly clear. A deep playoff run is not in their future, so best sell off their prized assets to whoever might be a willing buyer. Get more young players and give those young players you already have some more exposure to fully evaluate where you are in going into next year. One of these teams understood their predicament. The other did not. FlyQuest did the smart thing, jettisoning veteran top laner Licorice. He was one of the best domestic talents for the last few years with Cloud9, but 2021 has not been kind to him. He's been one of the worst top laners in almost every major statistical category, and he's looked like a shell of his past glory. But some team out there might be willing to pay a pretty penny for him. Perhaps with a change of scenery, Licorice could return to his past form. Teams like Dignitas, Immortals, or hell, even TSM could foresee themselves a top-tier team with Licorice in their midst. Maybe Team Liquid would come calling if the rift between Alfari and them was truly broken. Instead, it was Golden Guardians, a team that should be in a similar sell now mode, who also has their own young talented top laner in Nile sitting in Academy? How does this make any sense? The only reason GGS isn't being laughed to the moon is that since it isn't technically a trade, FlyQuest didn't get any players back. With terms undisclosed, we can only assume GGS offered to eat the rest of his contract and maybe sweeten the deal, but why do it? Yes, you extended his contract for next year, but do you really think you would have been in a bidding war with many teams given his performance this year? And you still have no idea what Niles really is. You only gave him half a split, and now it's the time you should be evaluating him as an option for next year, so maybe you don't have to pay a lot for a declining option like Licorice. And this guy struggled with Jose Diodo on FlyQuest. Do we really think he's going to look that much better with Iconic? And do we really think Golden Guardians are a team that's going to be competitive even next year? Well, Blaze Olive has been looking much better, yes, but Iconic is still not probably LCS caliber. Stixxay is another veteran with a low ceiling, and you have no idea what you have in Chime. Yes, you have Prismal, who's a young, talented ADC, but the rest of the Academy team is very, very young. Even if they're as good as advertised, this team is not a Licorice away from being a contender next year. I mean, you can actually argue FlyQuest had better young talent with Palafox, Tomo, and Diamond, and they just got rid of Licorice. Now, look, I do hope Licorice turns things around and I look up like a massive moron for this take, but I just don't see the logic from Golden Guardians with this move. I know they highly coveted Licorice last year, but that's when they had a core that was a top laner away from being competitive. Now those days are done. You would think an org that watched Steph Curry wither and die without support after years of building through the draft would have a better eye for developing talent than their LCS team is currently showing. For fuck's sake, just learn the basics of supply and demand, people.
Defeat.